Welcome inside episode 511 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Pillar out in Golden, BC. And the Ottawa Senators got offense and sustained defense in a 4-1 victory on the road in St. Louis to end a 5-game road trip on a high note.
Oh, an absolutely high note up against the Blues. Brady Tkachuk scores his first goal in his hometown of St. Louis. Anton Forsberg is stellar yet again. And Ross, we can keep the good times rolling, hopefully, with the Belleville Senators up against the Providence Bruins this afternoon.
We're going to have a conversation about Anton Forsberg once again. What is his value as this guy is just making save after save after save? And as a goalie-friendly show, let's get right into it. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Wednesday, March 9th. And Pilsy, do the Ottawa Senators have a goalie controversy?
I feel like the Ottawa Senators have had a goalie controversy for a long time, and it never ends. But hey, sometimes it's good problems, because when you have a goalie that's on an expiring deal, not making a whole lot of money, but is lighting it up, you can either trade him at a high value at the deadline, or you can decide to keep him. And Ross, I said it on the postcast, and I think I've fully flipped my opinion on this. The Senators should keep Anton Forsberg now. Like, there's a return that they could get, wouldn't be able to help them in the immediate future, and they got picks, they got prospects. What do they need? A consistent, reliable goaltender, and they've got one in Anton Forsberg.
So we talk about how he's raising his value for trade. He's also raising his contract value for this offseason. Can the Senators afford Anton Forsberg going forward?
Ross, I'm going to flip the script on you here. Can the Senators afford not to sign Anton Forsberg, right? Like, I mean, they've got cap space. So a guy like Forsberg, like we talked about a comparable contract was Laurent Brossoit, right? And I think he's at $2.5 million for 3 years or something like that. So anything under $3 million and less than 3 years, the Senators could afford that, in my opinion. And they need a goalie that, when Matt Murray has his injury woes, that can step in and you can feel comfortable, you can feel confident that he's able to play his game, and that, hey, if you need him for 3 straight games, he's good. If you need him for 6, 7, 10 straight games, you can rely on him, because let's be honest, Philip Gustafsson is not at that point yet, and no fault of his own. Like, Gustafsson has only played 23 games this year, Ross. This is a guy that was supposed to have the year to be a consistent starter in Belleville, to make his way to the NHL, to earn that one-way deal next year. But he hasn't been awarded that opportunity because he's been bouncing around here. So it's tough to say that he's able to fill in if Matt Murray gets injured and they decide to move on from Forsberg. So for that reason alone, they need to sign Anton Forsberg. Like, you can't find a guy like this, and that's why his trade value is so high right now.
If you look at goalies who have played more than 15 games, like, his numbers just jump off the page.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But then I'm looking at other contracts around the league, and I'm seeing goalies who are making up past $3.5 million. And I'm like, you know what? I'd probably take Forsberg over guys like Thomas Greiss, Cam Talbot, Peter Mrazek. Those guys are all almost making $4 million a year.
Maybe not Cam Talbot, but the other guys for sure.
Anton Forsberg's putting on a clinic game in and game out. Like, even Chris Driedger signed for 3.5 this past off season. Like, yeah, he had a great year last year, but Forsberg's matching it step by step this season. So I am so intrigued at what Anton Forsberg's going to be. And last night was just another singing example of that. The save on Vladimir Tarasenko. Ooh. I haven't seen saves like that since the Hamburglar run, where he was snapping them out of midair like that. That was unbelievable. And I don't know if you heard Anton Forsberg after the game, Pilsy, say that he heard the puck go off his stick. So now we got spidey senses involved in this too.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's giving off Forsbergler vibes for sure. And Ross, I think ideally, the Senators, if they could get him on a 2-year deal, they could overpay him a little. But we've talked about this ad nauseum. Like, he's probably wanting a 3-year deal. And he is in a situation leverage-wise where he can push for that. Or he'll say, hey, I'll just go to the free market and I'm sure I can get something close to that, right? So I think if you're Ottawa, you need to really get serious here. And the trade deadline, it's coming too fast, too soon. Like, the Senators have so many unanswered questions. And Pierre Dorion, like, he's got to be up night and day working the phones here because there are so many things that he has to get done. And the success of this team next season relies heavily on how he handles this deadline.
But before the deadline, there's more games to be had as the Senators return home from a 5-game road trip for a 5-game homestand. And in terms of NHL, there's no such thing as an easy homestand, but Seattle, Chicago, Arizona, Columbus, and Philadelphia will be the next teams entering the CTC with no capacity limits as the restrictions have eased in Ontario. But last night's game, and we talked a lot, last night's postcast, one of the best we've ever done, I would say. So you can go and catch up on that wherever you get your podcast or on YouTube, where we'd appreciate if you subscribe, hit the like button as well. It certainly goes a long way for us, and we do appreciate it. I'm sure the fans, and maybe they won't admit it this soon after, but they appreciate a good hometown kid in St. Louis. And last night, crazy to think that Brady Tkachuk, a player who's played 251 NHL games, that was only his second game in St. Louis, and he gets his first goal. What an absolutely fantastic moment.
Yeah, it was great. And I love that type of shot, Ross. A nice low wrister that just beats a goalie. And Brady Tkachuk was buzzing all night. He hit the post. He drew a penalty with a nice spinorama. He was throwing hits. He was doing everything that Brady Tkachuk does. So I think the hockey gods were like, okay, we're going to give him one here. And we're going to give him the goal that puts the icing on the cake to make it 3-1 in his hometown with his family present. And I'm sure there's a lot of friends as well. A lot of people still living in St. Louis. So that's a great moment that Brady's going to remember for the rest of his career, I'm sure.
Friends in the stands, best friend back on his line. Yeah. How great to see Josh Norris back producing on the power play where he scores his 20th goal of the season. Pilsy, what's more impressive? The fact that he's got 20 goals overall, despite missing so much time, or the fact that 15 of them are on the road?
Wow, road warrior Josh Norris. I mean, I'm so glad to see him back in his office and doing what he does best. And I want to give a quick shout out to Tim Stützle on that assist, because if you watch the replay, the puck is in the far left corner and Timmy's beaver tailing for it quick because he's already 2 steps ahead in his mind, right? He's like, okay, there's an open lane for the puck to get to me. And if I fake a shot, I can swing it over to Norris. And I mean, that's money. That's automatic goal if I can tee it up for Norris. And that's what he does. So some people, like the real, the angry old grumpy hockey guys, may not like the beaver tailing for a pass, but when you want a pass to make a pass, I'll accept it. So that was a great job by Timmy, and he was my Sen Central standout last night on a 3-game point streak where he's racking up the points.
And we will touch on Tim Stützle in a moment, but Pilsy, I guess this also speaks to the fact that power play success is not a 100% guaranteed indicator for team success, but the Senators have scored at least one power play goal in 5 of their last 7 games, but last night, the power play goes 2 for 2, and not only is Josh Norris a big factor on the power play, which we already mentioned, but Colin White gets 2 power play assists, and he now has a point per game since his return. So that just adds a whole other layer of intrigue to the trade deadline, doesn't it?
Oh, it really does. And I mean, Colin White, he's making a point that, hey, I know that 1/3 contract buyout is very tempting, but you might regret it if that happens. And Colin White, I think he fits in with this Ottawa Senators team better than he would anywhere else in the league. The guys already love him. He's a glue guy. Everyone, fans included, were so happy to see him come back. And he's looking like a new Colin White. Like, we haven't seen him be able to put up points. I mean, still a small sample size, but hey, take the sample size you can get. He's racking up points. He's a big part of that top power play unit. He's really helped replace I mean, no one can really replace Batherson, but he's helped put someone in a spot where he can at least make things happen on that first power play unit, and he's looking great out there. So I'm so happy for Whitey.
5 points in 6 games it is for Colin White here. Those 2 assists last night, played 14-45, 0-for-7 on the face-off, Jaw. But again, like I know he played a lot of center last night, did play a little wing as well, moving up and playing with Norris and Tkachuk for a few shifts, but I still see him as a right winger going forward. But that being said, great to see him producing and great to see the Senators producing on the power play. 2 goals for them with the man advantage, and just I just loved how calm they were. And like, are you surprised at all by the stat of leading after 2 periods? Because all we hear about on every broadcast at the start of the 3rd period is how bad the Senators' goal differential is in the 3rd period. Oh, it's always the bottom of the league. When leading after 2 periods, the Senators are 17, 1, and 1. It's an automatic win when the Senators are leading after 2 periods. 7-0-1 on the road, Pilsy.
That's incredible, yeah. And that was a masterful second period by the Ottawa Senators, only allowing 3 shots from the St. Louis Blues all period. Like, that is just incredible. So, and really, if you look back at it, Ross, this game against the Blues and against Vegas, those are great games. Like, sure, they lose that one in Vegas with 6 seconds left, but apart from that, they played really well. And you're starting to see this team come back into form after that brutal 3-game stretch, Tampa, Florida, and Arizona. So that's good to see. And coming home to a full crowd with all this momentum is going to be awesome.
It's a day off for the Ottawa Senators today, well earned after a long road trip that started. When did that one started in Tampa Bay on March 1st? So they've been gone for the entire 9 days of March. So they return home. They're back with their families and getting ready for a 5-game homestand. We got more to talk about, including a Senator setting a career best in goals, a Sens prospect being named captain of his WHL team, and a whole lot more. But first, Pilsy, a word from our friends at Built Bar.
Built Bar, you guys know I'm out in BC on a snowboard trip, so I need to stay energized, and how I'm doing that is with Built Bar. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. All their bars are covered in 100% chocolate, so if you're a chocolate lover, I can guarantee you're going to love Built Bar. They have so many amazing flavors to choose from. If you haven't tried them yet, we recommend getting the mix box. And how can you do that? Easy. Go to Built.com today, and you can use our promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. These bars are low in sugar, low in calories, but high in protein and high in fiber. They have all the things you want, and they cut down on the things you don't want. Their focus is to make the bars taste good first and then make them healthy. So you're not going to get some of these protein bars that, sure, they got health benefits, but you got to force them down. That's not Built Bar. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. So check it out today if you guys haven't already at Built.com. Use our promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your next order. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar.
All right, Pilsy. So the Ottawa Senators defeat the St. Louis Blues 4-1, and Jordan Binnington lets a few squeakers in. I feel awful. I feel so terrible for him. Psych. Not at all. Not one bit of sympathy there, but it was great to not only see Josh Norris score his 20th, but Tim Stützle gets his 13th goal of the year, passing his total from last season when he had 12 in. How many games did he play last year? He played
56.
No, 53, because he missed a couple at near the start of the season. So he plays 53. This year he's at 55 games, 13 goals, but he has 4 more points than he did last season. So just to put into perspective too, now you're looking at a sample size here for Tim Stützle where since December 4th, so that game against Colorado, 25 points in 34 games. Do you think this is just another step of more to come for Stützle?
Absolutely. And you got to consider, first off, this is a young player entering the NHL. So it takes time. And you also have to consider he went from the left wing to center kind of near the start of this season. So that's a lot of adjustments to make too. I think we're now seeing the rewards of him making that move to the middle of the ice and him playing so much better and him starting to click on the power play, starting to be confident in his shot. That was something I always wanted him to do because it seemed like he would always defer. Like maybe maybe that's a young player being like, all right, I got to make sure I give this pass to the more veteran player so it doesn't look like I'm selfish or anything like that. But when he uses his shot, it's absolutely elite. So I really think Timmy's coming into his own there. He's got a lot of work to do in the face-off dot, but he's got a lot of time to figure that out. And I think he's someone that he's really working hard on that. Like we heard from Josh Norris. He's after practice. He's like picking Josh's brain. How can I get better in the faceoff dot with Nick Paul? All these guys, he's trying to get better. So you got to respect that. And I think it will come in time, but the points are rolling in. We love to see that for the superstar.
Timmy Superstar gets the bike helmet and shades last night for the Ottawa Senators. Now, I'm just going to pull this up here real quick because last time, remember, it stopped here. Tim Stützle, there he is, bike helmet and all in his glory. Didn't put the shades on, though, Pillsy. You got a problem with that?
No, it's okay. I'll let it slide this time. And I mean, he's got the bike helmet 3 times now, so he's put the shades on before. It's ho hum for Tim Stützle.
Boom. Bang! That's the Tim Stützle montage.
There it is.
Of bike helmet and shade. So, hey, that's just an awesome aside. I was worried they lost the helmet, Pillsy, after going that long without handing one out.
Yeah, I mean, and safety first, you got to have that bike helmet around. So that's great that they still had it. And yeah, we talked about it in the postcast, there was 3 or 4 guys that were well deserving of the bike helmet. So definitely a lot of positives in last night's game.
Can we talk about the fourth line as well? Because this was a game that the refs let the guys play. 3 minor penalties, all of them in the first period. And when that happens, the coach can just roll 4 lines. And you don't have to worry about special teams and having guys tired after a long penalty, all those sorts of within the game strategic changes that you have to make. But last night, that fourth line combined for 15 hits, Pillsy. They were just absolutely smoking everything that moved. Parker Kelly standing up for Gambrell, too, after he took a big hit. I don't know how he only got 2 minutes. The gloves hit the eject button right away.
Yeah, well, I think they were just like, he didn't really get a chance to pummel him much, so we'll just give him 2 minutes roughing there. And I want to shout out Austin Watson, not a guy known for his hands, but he was inches away from a beautiful goal. I think it was in the third period. He did a little toe drag backhand around Binnington, and the puck just hit the top of his pads there. Like if he had got a little more oomph and a little more height on it, that's a highlight reel goal from your fourth line grinder.
First round pick, though, back in 2010, Austin Watson.
Yep. Can't take that away from him.
You absolutely cannot. You can try, but you absolutely cannot. No, but that fourth line honestly did a lot, I thought, to help. Especially, we talked about yesterday how St. Louis is a heavy team. That's their bread and butter is playing physical, playing hard, and they gave them a taste of their own medicine with that line. I thought it would be a lot easier to go through the entire list of guys who played well last night. It would be a long one, but I didn't really see any performances outside of number 22. And how long can I keep harping on Zaitsev? I guess we can touch on that briefly because the 1 goal against at the time made it 1-1, right? So you're not in a game where you're like, oh, tap Z on the back. It's okay, Nikita, go back, just do your thing. But it was just another egregious error that ends up in the back of his net.
I mean, he had 3 opportunities to clear that puck and just kind of fumbling with it, not putting enough strength on his stick. He even ends up losing his stick on that play. So that's a tough one. And then obviously when it looks like you have multiple opportunities to clear, the Sens players are already starting to transition up the ice. That leaves David Perron wide open out in front, and Forsberg not ready for a quick little backhand spin-a-ram shot like that. So you can't really blame him there, but yeah, another tough one for 22.
Like, poor Holden. Like, what's he supposed to do? He's got to take his guy on the left side and take the front of the net as well.
Exactly, and then you got to watch Zub go up and play with Shabbat, and your partner that you've been great with all year gets rewarded, and you get stuck with the defensive liability when you're supposed to be the shutdown pair. That's tough for Holden.
It's extremely tough. Any other notes you had on last night's game, Pillsy? Again, 4-1 victory for the Ottawa Senators. Forsberg, ridiculous in goal. 22 saves, I want to say, for him in last night's game. But, man, there was some highlight reel material in there. But outside of that, anything else stand out for you?
No, I think we covered it all. I mean, yeah, you gotta love it when your top young guys that are going to be the core of this group going forward. Brady scores, Josh Norris, a bunch of points. Tim Stützle, a bunch of points. Colin White chipping in. So you got to love that. So that's just one of those games that, thank God we capped that road trip off with a win, because the Sens needed that and Sens fans needed that.
And how about Alex Formenton getting
Yep.
off the schneid? I know he got one in Arizona as well. So now 2 goals in the last 3 games for Formy. So hopefully, I know it's an empty netter, but hopefully this gets the ball rolling for him to continue on here. And another stick tap goes out to Connor Brown. Game time decision, ends up playing, gets an assist, 3 takeaways for him as well in this one. And I just thought he was his classic high hockey IQ self. There were a couple opportunities where I'm like, a little extra pass that maybe he didn't have to make, but I thought all in all it was a great game as well for Connor Brown. If we're looking at the back end too, Thomas Chabot steady as well. So that's I think we got that. Sens got dominated in the faceoff dot, but Pilsy, when you win 4-1, doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, as a face-off guy, I'll let that one slide, because they were able to dominate in other ways. And if you can go 100% on the power play, I don't care what your face-off numbers are.
Do you think it's strange, though, that the Senators had 8 different guys take faceoffs? And I know people get kicked out of certain draws and whatnot, but St. Louis only had 4 guys. Only their centerman took draws.
Wow.
So that either shows some great discipline, that guys aren't cheating and getting kicked out quick, but like Ryan O'Reilly went 70% last night. Shen went 67%. And then their other 2 centers went 50-50. So that's a recipe for good puck possession, but
yeah,
it ain't matter last night, Pills. I'll tell you that for free.
Exactly. And Ross, I'd be interested to know, I wouldn't know how to find this stat or if it's even possible, but what the splits are between centermen getting kicked out of the faceoff, whether you're home or away, like getting to put your stick down first, because that's a massive advantage. And if you're the away team, you're trying to make up for not having your stick down first, and that's when you get into trouble and get kicked out of the dot. So if anyone's able to figure that out, that's just something that would be interesting to see how much of an advantage it is not getting kicked out of the dot as the home team.
Yeah, shoot us a DM on Twitter at Send Central. You can follow along there for the show. Also on Instagram, lockedon.senators. We got lots of great stuff planned for the rest of the week. We're going to be joined by David Foote, play-by-play voice and PR director for the Belleville Senators on Friday. We're going to chat with them today, so nothing on the Syracuse game, or sorry, Providence game. That game is at 3 o'clock today, so we're going to actually recap that game on tomorrow's Locked On Senators, where we're also going to get the first glimpse of the Seattle Kraken who come to town, the first meeting between Ottawa and Seattle. If there's any angles of that you want us to cover, shoot us a DM note on Twitter as well. We'd appreciate that. I love all the engagement, especially yesterday, Pilsy. I'm still cooling down from those spicy takes we got.
Yeah, no kidding. And Ross, for your sake, hopefully Brady Tkachuk scores against the Seattle Kraken. So next time you put out a little stat about teams that he hasn't scored up against, people won't remind you that he has not scored up against the Kraken, a team which he has not played against.
Thank God for everyone keeping me honest. Really appreciate that. All right, now let's get to a couple news and notes to finish off. Quick episode today, but again, last night we went pretty long again in the postcast, and it was a fun show there. So we got a little note from the WHL, and Zach Ostapchuk, who has 6 goals and 9 points in his last 10 games, has been named captain of the Vancouver Giants. So between Tim Stützle, 3-point night, career high in goals, gets his 20th assist of the year. Then Josh Norris, his 20th goal of the season, and Zach Ostapchuk being named captain of the Vancouver Giants. That's a pretty good night for the Erik Karlsson trade.
Oh my God, a great night for the Erik Karlsson trade. And this is one thing I want to touch on, and it's perfect that Zach Ostapchuk is now captain. Ross, how many Sens prospects are captains now? Like, they've got a couple of them. And this is the thing, like, sure, maybe the internet scouts and people, when the Sens are drafting, they think, okay, they're reaching this guy. His point totals aren't going to look good. They could have got a better score, blah, 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 blah. But what the Senators are doing is they're not just drafting players, they're drafting people. They're looking for guys that show good quality leadership, guys that when they're on a team, they're looked up to by their teammates. I mean, what was I'm forgetting, you probably know this, but who was the player that was saying, was it Beniers that was like, yeah, Sanderson is a guy I look up to for leadership? Like, all these people are looking at Sens prospects as people and saying, these guys know how to get it done. They're relied upon, and the coaches love them too. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're seeing all these negative comments about how the Sens are reaching for guys. They're looking to build a culture, and they're looking to put people in the right places. It's not all about points when you're 16, 17 years old, how that's going to project for throughout an entire NHL career. They're saying, let's find the right people. And I think they're doing a great job of that. And Zach Ossipchuk being named a captain is yet another example.
And he's playing well too, which is important, right? So he's starting to produce offensively, which is great to see. You can actually say that about a lot of the 2021 draft. Don't say it too loud or the internet scouts will be all over you. However, Tyler Boucher, 6 points in his last 7 games. By the way, did you see the throwback jerseys that the 67s are going to rock?
Yeah, you love those, eh? I think Tyler Boucher is going to look great in them.
They're unbelievable. I asked very politely if they could send us a couple. I mean, we'll pay for them, I guess. But, geez, those are going to look absolutely unbelievable coming up here. So I can't wait to see him rocking those. So 6 points in his last 7 games. Our boy, Carson Latimer's got 9 points in his last 11 games. And here's an interesting one. A guy who is a long way away from producing overseas, but in his native Sweden. Isn't it interesting that Sens 4th-round pick Oliver Johansson, he has gone without a point at the SHL level. In the top league there, he's got no points, -7 in 14 games. So, Pillsy, safe to say he's not quite ready for the next level, eh?
Yeah, and I actually kind of forgot about him. He's one of those prospects that got kind of swept under the rug here. But he was a guy when the Sens drafted him.
Sorry, third-round pick.
Yeah, even internet scouts were like, yeah, there's some upside to this guy, and we like this pick. So I think that's the thing. You can't you need to give these players time. And I think the fact that he's already in the SHL is pretty good. And one thing, too, to remember is things are a little different over there. Like, just because he's a young, good prospect doesn't mean he's going to be on the top power play or getting a lot of minutes. Like, a lot of times, top prospects over in the SHL and playing in pro leagues over in Europe, they're still stuck on 3rd, 4th lines. Like, they don't get the opportunities that maybe they would if they're playing junior or college over here. So that's one thing to remember, and it's impressive that he's already getting pro experience.
Well, I kind of set you up on that because although he has played 14 games at that level, he spent more of the year playing in the J20 loop. Okay. So basically like junior A, consider that the equivalent to in Ontario.
How's he doing there?
In that league, he's got 14 points in his last 10 games, 8 goals in his last 10 games as well. So producing at the level he's at, but again, getting a little taste. And Timra, the team he plays for, same as Victor Lodin, they were just elevated from the Allsvenskan League to the SHL. So they're going to be near the bottom of the table in terms of that. That's right? Fair. Just in terms of quality. So that being said, man, he's putting up points in that. We already talked about Tyler Kleven. We're going to be getting ready for their playoff series this weekend at the Ralph when North Dakota is going in for the NCHC Frozen Face-Off. And then maybe more. We'll find out if Jake Sanderson, if and when he will return to the lineup. Hopefully soon, man. I know they're winning without him, but I miss watching Jake Sanderson shake shimmy at the blue line.
Well, me too, and it would just clear up a lot of this cloudy injury reports, right? Like, it still seems uncertain where he's at health-wise. So to see him back playing would just put us all at ease, and Sens fans could breathe a sigh of relief, and Nodak fans too.
Yes, absolutely. Can't wait for that coming up. Lots going on in the Sens prospect world, Pilsy, but the Belleville Senators are in action as well. Being a 3 p.m. game, it's not like we're going to go here and give a very in-depth preview, but who are you hoping has a big week? Who should I be watching this weekend when I'm at the arena there calling the game with footy?
You may not love this answer, but for me, keep an eye out for Jake Lucchini. I mean, this guy is still leading Belleville in points. He's an absolute stud. He's someone that they need to put pen to paper here. They got to get him signed to a contract because he is an absolute beauty for them. And another fun answer, get some eyes on MDZ. Like, let's see how he's doing. Uncle Deli, like, is this all just like a fairy tale? And when the trade deadline comes, the clock strikes midnight, he's going to be done here. But Ross, they are up against a really good team in Providence Bruins today, because the Providence Bruins are 9-1 in their last 10 games. Is that good? I think so. And they're also first in their division. So it's going to be no easy task. And the Ottawa Senators, they don't get to play the the Belleville Senators. They don't play Providence that often. So this will be an unfamiliar team that they're going to have to go up against. And I'm hoping they can have good results here. And I'll just say, hopefully they don't lose by 2. That way I can mush the Providence Bruins and Belleville can have a good game.
There you go.
That seems to be how it goes with me. So
yes, perfect. So you're gonna have to continue that for the rest of the season if we do get the result we're hoping for tonight.
I'll do it.
Again, follow us on Twitter at Sen Central. Gonna try to get some behind the scenes stuff out this weekend when I'm down at Canada Life Center. Moose versus Belleville Senators, and it's such an important stretch here for Belleville, who are continuing to fight for their playoff lives. But with these games in hand, they could be fighting for home ice eventually, and hopefully anyone in the Belleville area can get out to a game or two and cheer the boys on, because it's been a long road to get to the playoffs for this organization, and unfairly so, because they were first in their division at the time of the shutdown in 2019-2020, and then no playoffs in the AHL last year. So need a big push here to get in, and not only get in, but then get a few wins under their belt once playoffs roll around. The Senators head back home. Meanwhile, Ottawa, that is, for a 5-game homestand. And I already listed off the teams, Pilsy. What would constitute as a successful homestand here out of these 5? How many points do you need? How many wins do you need?
Well, and just for some context, you rattled off those teams and I looked at the standings. Columbus is the top team of those teams, and they're 21st.
Right,
so,
but Arizona's coming, man.
I know. It sounds bad, but I am a little nervous. Like, they're scoring at an incredible pace here. So that's a team that the Sens are going to have to hopefully put up a better effort up against them. But for these 5 games, there's no reason why they can't get 8 points, right? Like, I think that's definitely attainable. Now, if you're looking from a tank situation, that's not exactly ideal, but the boys need to get some wins up in a full crowd in the CTC. So I'm throwing the lottery odds out the window. Let's get some good vibes going here.
100%. You have to beat the teams below you, especially with guys coming back. And I know you saw that Drake Batherson Instagram post. It could be sooner rather than later that he returns from his high ankle sprain. And that would really give us a chance to at least close out the year thinking what if and what could be for next year. Shane Pinto would still be out, and hopefully he and Angus Crookshank can continue their rehab and get back for a push with the Belleville Sens. All that being said, Pilsy, any final notes on today's show?
I was just thinking how awesome that postcast was. The vibes are so great when the Sens win. Brady Tkachuk scoring in his hometown. Like, it was nice just to flush all those bad feelings down the drain and come out with a win for that road trip and to come home. And it'd be great if they could get a win up against the Seattle Kraken the very first time they face them as a franchise. So that's what I'm hoping for, a big game up against Seattle here.
I'm just looking. What do you think the score was the first ever time that the Ottawa Senators played the Vegas Golden Knights?
Oh, boy. I have no clue. That seems like a lifetime ago.
It was early on. It was the 10th game of the season in 2018.
And Vegas wasn't hot yet, were they? I forget how they started. After
this game, they were 5-5-1.
Yeah, so just average. Yeah, I'm going to say Sens won that game.
No.
Damn. What was the score?
It was 4-3 in overtime for Vegas.
Okay.
And Craig Anderson made 49 saves on 53 shots.
Whew.
They were outshot 53-22 in that game and still managed to push it to overtime. Goal scorers for Ottawa: Matt Duchene, Bobby Ryan, and Ryan Dzingel. However, Ottawa was actually up 2-0 in this game, which is wild for me to think. Mark Borowiecki got kicked out of the game. 5-minute major for charging, 5 for fighting, and a 10-minute misconduct. So 20 PIMs on the night for Boro in that one as well. What a wild team as I look at it right now. The only guys left from it, actually Formie played in that game as well. So Shabbat, Formanton, and Colin White all helped welcome Vegas into the league. Now let's see what happens against Seattle. We'll discuss more on tomorrow's Locked On Senators. Stay locked on for the rest of the week. We got lots of great stuff coming and beyond, as we appreciate you making us your first listen of the day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Have a great day. Keep the vibes rolling after a big win for Brandon Pillar. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.